What will it take to get Wicked's Part 3 and 4?
We're actually talking about something.
Are you wondering if there will be a part 3 that picks up where Wicked for Good left off? Don't wander too far because we have all the right answers for you in this video, including the stories that could change everything. Glinda's story could change completely with a third film, especially if she's been magical all along and didn't know it. The novel suggests that Glinda possesses genuine magical abilities that develop over time. Although Glinda always relied on props and performances, Elphaba's power came naturally. And the reason Glinda connected so deeply with Elphaba might not be just friendship, but an unconscious recognition of shared magical potential. So, Wicked 3 could explore Glinda discovering that her abilities were dormant, waiting for the right circumstances to emerge. This storyline would also create interesting parallels with Elphaba's journey. Both witches struggled with being different, just in opposite ways. Elphaba was too powerful and too visible, while Glinda wasn't powerful enough and hid behind performance. Watching Glinda learn to embrace genuine magical ability would mirror Elphaba's acceptance of her green skin and extraordinary gifts. The last time we saw Elphaba, she was going beyond Oz with Fiyero, and that might be the beginning of a new story. After she spent her entire life fighting for the voiceless animals of Oz, she's now forced to watch from the shadows as her work continues. She can't reveal herself without undoing everything she sacrificed, but staying hidden means abandoning the cause she nearly died for multiple times. And it's not any better for Fiyero, who's now permanently a scarecrow, which creates its own set of complications. Can he change back? Does he even want to? The Broadway musical leaves this ambiguous, but a third film could explore the reality of their situation. They're together, which is what they both wanted, but it wasn't precisely a happy ending. However, this creates opportunities to explore beyond Oz, where they could meet other outcasts or communities outside the main cities. Interestingly, a third movie will expose what becomes of the Wizard and Madame Morrible. In the Broadway version, both of these villains meet their ends, but a film could explore what happens to Oz after their corrupt leadership is removed. In Wicked for Good, we saw how Glinda took over and reunited the animals with the people, but there's still a lot to see of Oz without the manipulators. The Wizard's departure is even more significant. He was Elphaba's father, a secret that Glinda discovered, but that Elphaba never knew. This revelation creates an opportunity for Glinda to track down Elphaba and tell her the truth about her father. Learning that the man who ruined her life and forced her into hiding was actually her father would devastate Elphaba in ways we haven't seen yet. Now that the Wicked government is gone, there's a lot more that could happen in Wicked 3. Elphaba fought for animal rights throughout her entire arc, but the victory was never complete. A third film could show the actual work of dismantling oppressive systems and rebuilding society from the ground up. The animals who were silenced and oppressed would need voices in the new government. However, it could be hard to integrate a population that's been treated as second-class citizens for generations, as there could be resistance from people who benefited from the old system. Just as Elphaba did, Glinda also stepped in to make many changes in Wicked for Good, and her personal journey after everything that happened deserves its own exploration. She's lost both the men she could have been romantically involved with and her best friend. She's essentially alone, surrounded by people, but without a genuine connection. That's incredibly isolating, especially for someone as naturally social as Glinda. And Wicked 3 could introduce new characters who challenge Glinda to grow in different ways. However, Glinda's romantic storyline might take an unexpected turn as she meets someone who sees her only as Glinda. The relationship would give her space to be vulnerable and honest in ways she couldn't be when she was performing the role of the perfect witch. But the most interesting direction might be Glinda learning to be alone and okay with it. Not every story needs a romantic resolution. So, Glinda finding fulfillment in her work, in rebuilding Oz, in making amends for her past, could be just as satisfying as any love story. Wicked 3 is going to be even more depressing than Wicked for Good. Bok's transformation into the Tin Man was one of the most tragic elements of the second film. He loved Glinda, got trapped in a relationship with Nessarose, and ended up losing his heart literally. A third film could explore what happens to him after Dorothy's adventure ends. In the original Wizard of Oz story, the Tin Man gets a heart from the wizard, but we know the wizard was a fraud, which means any heart he gave perspective was symbolic rather than real, so that doesn't mean anything for Bock. However, there's potential for a redemption arc for Bock, as he could also become an essential ally in rebuilding Oz. He understands what it's like to be transformed against your will, to lose your agency and your humanity. That gives him a unique perspective on the animal situation and other injustices in Oz. He might become one of the strongest voices for change precisely because he's experienced oppression so personally. Here's where things get really wild. In Gregory Maguire's novels, Elphaba has a son named Lear, and his story becomes central to the later books. A third film could introduce this character, showing Elphaba and Fiyero building a family in hiding while trying to protect their child from a world that would fear or exploit him. Lear would likely inherit magical abilities from Elphaba, but how those manifest and what they mean for his identity create natural story possibilities. We will see whether he has green skin like his mother and how growing up in hiding affects him. The existence of a child also raises the stakes for Elphaba and Fiyero's continued hiding. It's one thing to risk themselves, but protecting their son adds a whole new dimension of urgency. They'd have to make impossible choices about whether to train him to use his magic, which could expose them, or suppress his abilities, which could harm him psychologically. Lear could also become the bridge between Elphaba's hidden life and the changing world of Oz. Maybe he ventures out without his parents knowing, curious about the society they've told him about but kept him from. He could accidentally encounter Glinda, leading to the discovery that Elphaba is alive, or he might befriend other young people who don't know who his mother really is. The story could even jump forward in time, showing Lear as a young adult dealing with his legacy to continue his mother's fight for justice, or resent the fact that all of Oz believes his mother was wicked. This background drama would give the third film a fresh perspective while honoring the themes of the first two. Also, we didn't really get to see Dorothy in Wicked for Good, except for a few glimpses at her shoes and her actions. The original film ends with her returning to Kansas, but what if circumstances bring her back to Oz in Wicked 3? She'd return to find everything changed. With Glinda now ruling and the Wicked Witch's demise announced, Dorothy's perspective would be very important, as she's the only central character without a political stake in Oz's future. She's an outsider who can see the situation clearly. Maybe she discovers the truth about what really happened with Elphaba and becomes determined to set the record straight. After all, she's the one who supposedly got rid of the Wicked Witch. The film could explore how Dorothy's actions, however unintentional, played into political manipulation. The manipulators used her to solve their problems with Elphaba. That realization would be devastating for someone as inherently good as Dorothy. Her journey to make amends could drive the plot forward in interesting ways. Now, let's talk about whether all of this will actually happen with Wicked 3. Director John M. Chu has hinted that he's open to continuing the story if there's a compelling narrative reason to do so. He's been careful not to make promises, but he's acknowledged that the world of Oz has more stories to tell. The success of the first two films definitely makes a third installment commercially viable. Gregory Maguire, who wrote the original Wicked novel, has actually written several other books set in this universe. Son of a Witch follows Lear's story, while A Lion Among Men and Out of Oz continue exploring different characters and time periods. Any of these could be adapted, giving filmmakers plenty of source material to work with. The question is whether the creative team wants to continue or feels the story has reached a natural conclusion. Elphaba and Fiyero riding off into the sunset together provides closure, but it also leaves so many questions unanswered, and these unanswered questions create space for more storytelling. From a business perspective, the Wicked franchise has proven incredibly valuable. The films brought the Broadway musical to a much wider audience and reignited interest in revisiting familiar stories from new angles. Hollywood loves successful franchises, and Wicked has demonstrated both critical acclaim and commercial success. That combination makes a third film very likely if the creative pieces fall into place. The real challenge would be maintaining the quality and emotional depth that made the first two films special. A third installment couldn't just be a cash grab. It would need to have something meaningful to say, new layers to explore in these characters we've grown to love. If the filmmakers can figure out how to do that, if they can find a story that honors what came before while pushing the narrative forward, then Wicked Part 3 could absolutely happen. And based on all these insane possibilities we've explored, it could be just as magical as the journey that brought us here.